lockup. Right now he's robot-doing Terry Funk in a bionic elbow. Sends him right out of the ring.
Start right here with a guy that you have never seen before anywhere in the convention circuit. Give it up for the Doctor of Style, Slick. Yeah. This woman here was one of my favorites. One of the prettiest things you're ever going to see. Luna Vachon. Now, I was talking to you, sir, and you told me that you haven't seen this guy here for about, what, 14 years? 13 years, ladies and gentlemen, the reunion. The Bolsheviks, one of the most hated tag teams in history. Over here at the far end, this big gentleman. Give it up for Tugboat, also known as Typhoon. Look it down here, and Doink the Clown, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. The original. Man, I say the one and only, you know. And manager of The Undertaker. Doesn't get much better, Paul Bearer. Speaking of managers, this guy, I believe, was responsible for bringing in Kamala and many other. He's a former commissioner of WCW. And you may remember him as a legendary manager of the Four Horsemen. Give it up for Mr. James J. Dillon. And over here, who just made his entrance. Don't sit down, man, stand up. From WCW, Mr. Brian Clark. You also know him as Raph. And he did a little thing in WWF, Adam Bomb. Doesn't get any better than that. Should I say something?
Just before we get going, because the legends are here to talk to you. We advertised Sid to show up. Obviously, he's not here. I just want to go over that briefly so you understand what's going on. Anybody that knows me, I deal with the legends all the time. I book them for different promotions all over. I have a pretty good reputation with the talent and the promotions. We booked Sid to come in. I had good ongoing conversations with him. He calls me Friday night at 8:30 at night. I'm sorry, Thursday night, my apologies. Thursday night at 8:30 at night. Tells me, Eric, my mother's sick, I have to go to Texas. If that's the truth, my heart, and I feel for you. Go take care of your family business. Unfortunately, talking to different people, this is his reputation of calling last minute and throwing his mother's ill or there's some type of problem there. So I mean, if her mother's really sick, God bless you, go take care of it. Personally, we think he wanted to play softball. So I mean, that's why he'd rather play softball than be here to see you fans, be here at the Legends of the Ring, and be with NWS for 4 shows this weekend that they're running tonight in Manville over at the VFW and up in Kearney. So that's why Sid's not here. So if anybody came to see Sid, we're terribly sorry, but the Steiner brothers are here in-house, and you will see them after the question and answer. They're here to make up for Sid. Thank you.
All right. Now here's how we'll do it. If you have a question, if you just raise your hand, I'll hand you the microphone and state your name, where you're from, and give you guys the question. Okay? Who wants to be first? Somebody's got to be first. All right, back in the back. What's your name, where you're from, and your question?
Brett from Brooklyn, New York. I wanted to ask Sid, and I think Boris and Nikolai, what are your remembrance of the 1987 Slammy Awards in Atlantic City at Caesars?
Okay, I'll bring the microphone here. We'll start with Slick.
I just remember how good I was looking.
Now we'll go to Jim.
I just remember Nikolai making me trip on the steps.
And Nikolai.
That was the best wrestling move I ever make Boris trip.
All right, any other questions for any of the guests? Come on, I know you guys got some. Okay, I'll ask one. Any Sheik stories? Raise your hand if you've got Sheik stories. Your head went down, you got one.
I don't have nothing.
All right. Who's got a Sheik story? I know you've got one when you get off the plane. Come on, Boris, you can do it. When you get off the plane.
What he wants is a jabroni to carry his bags.
Get much better than that. Anybody got questions? Come on, guys. All right, good too. What's your name and where are you from?
Joe Bruin, Providence, Rhode Island. I was just curious how it was to work for Vince McMahon for the whole.
Okay, let's start with Paul.
I can't bitch. I don't even think JJ worked for him for 14 years. Did you? I ain't read your book yet. Almost 8. I made 14. So, you know, people's got bad things to say. Some guys got good things to say. If I say good things, they say I'm kissing ass, trying to go back to work for him. If I say bad things, I'm just bitter, washed up old has-been. So, you know, he saved my life. He paid my bills and helped me raise my family. And until somebody F's me, I don't F them. So he's done me right.
I don't want to shamelessly show my book, but McMahon to McMahon really is my whole life. I started as a referee in New Jersey and Pennsylvania with Vince and Jay McMahon, which was Vince Sr., Vince's father. And so I knew him, and he was a wonderful, wonderful human being. And then I spent almost, not quite 8 years working as a right-hand man for Vince McMahon. He's a very, very complex, interesting individual. He was obsessed at that point when I was still there with the wrestling business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, he would wake up and write notes in the middle of the night. And, never took a vacation, and basically set the standard for everybody else in terms of the work ethic that you just, you know, if you were sick and you were doing booking, it was like, well, you might as well be sick here as be sick at home. I mean, that's just how he thought. And I look at it as something that was a great opportunity for me. I took a lot from it. Do I have some personal issues with him? Yes, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, but there are people who think that he destroyed wrestling. I can't agree with that. He certainly, change is inevitable. You know, all change is not necessarily for the better. And a lot of the change was not good. And he's gone down the direction in some areas that I think isn't good. But if he hadn't done it, someone else would. And I give him credit as opposed to someone like Eric Bischoff, because Vince McMahon took the risks with his own money, where Eric Bischoff was writing checks out of somebody else's account. And a lot of people don't know, but Vince McMahon declared bankruptcy twice before he made it big. So, unlike Paul, I'm not affiliated with him. I have no alliances, and I can be totally objective. And I think, especially in my book, I've been very honest, and I did it from the perspective of no one else, of someone that works behind the scenes, that can really say what I want, because I don't have to worry about the phone ringing next week and asking him for a job. And I hope that answers your question.
Do I have to talk about Vince, or can I talk about him for a little while? Well, like JJ said, I mean, not everybody is always going to get along. I mean, I don't always agree with a lot of things that Vince did, but I had a good job when I was there, and a lot of the changes that took place not only took place because of Vince McMahon, it took place because of technology. You know, in the older days, you didn't have cable TV, you didn't have satellites, you didn't have pay-per-view. You were lucky if you had 4 or 5 channels on TV. And he seized the moment with technology. And he was on the cutting edge of what he did to advance the business. Again, just what JJ said, I don't have to like it, agree with it, dislike it, but it was going to happen because technology went forward. If he didn't do it, someone else was going to do it. And that's the way it is. I mean, personally, Vince and I, we had good times, we had bad times. You're not always going to get along with your boss. I mean, everybody who has a job, I'm sure everybody fights with their boss once in a while. They do something they don't like, or you have to do something that you don't want to do. But that's just the way the business, that's the way the world is. Not only our business, everybody's life is like that.
I'd have to say that because of Vince McMahon, I had the pleasure of becoming acquainted with everybody you see here on this panel, whom I regard as very close friends of mine. And we share bonds and family-like ties and camaraderie, and made acquaintance down through the years. And without Vince McMahon, that wouldn't have been possible. I somewhat see Vince McMahon as a visionary. You know, he goes out there and does things that no one else has done, and probably wouldn't do, and sometimes shouldn't do. but he does that, and like Doink said, we all have our disagreements with him about our personal careers and things that we did with regard to our characters. But I think by and large, none of us walked away broke, so I think we have to be grateful for that.
You know, it's real interesting because I think I've been fired more than anybody up here. But then I was rehired, and there's good and bad in everything, and I probably deserve to get fired. Yeah, I deserve to get fired a whole bunch of times. I had great matches in the locker room and horrible matches in the ring. You know, and Vince just wasn't paying for those locker room matches, you know. But he put bread and butter on my table, and I grew up in this business, and I remember Vince Sr., and Vince Sr. took really good care of my family, and so it went, I pay homage to his father more so than to him. And I have huge respect for him and what he has done for the business. And it's like they're saying, maybe it wasn't right, maybe it's right, you know, now that we're all smart marks. We're the marks because we keep trying to convince people that, you know, it's not a work. But this is a fabulous business, and we're a brotherhood, and Vince McMahon made it possible for people to make the money that we deserve. Unfortunately, we're still not making the money that women basketball players are making, but
that's a ripoff.
But I personally got to see the world. I have an 8th grade education because I grew up in the wrestling business, but I've been around the world twice, and there's not many people that have that kind of opportunity. So I personally owe him a lot. And not only that, he sent me to rehab, and it worked.
I remember when Arn Anderson first came up there, and Arn goes, "This is the final frontier," and he was right. I mean, Vince just took wrestling to a whole new level, and I had the best time of my life there, and I made the most money ever made in the business, and I got a lot of good friends up here that I got to work with, and we've had a lot of great friends that are gone, and boy, I miss them, and I was more glad to be here today, and not just to meet you all, but to see some of my friends. I ain't seen Nikolai in 13 years, and this was a great day. Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, guys. My name is Nikolai Volkov. Gibroni forgot to introduce me to you. I guess I'm here probably, I worked for Vince McMahon and his father first time in 1969. I come to make television, but I was 19 years old. I couldn't speak good English. I still can, but I tried. And I cannot say nothing bad about either. Vince McMahon's father, senior man, he was a very, very nice gentleman at the time. One of the best wrestling promoter. And I think Vince Jr. just followed his shoes with a new technology and opportunity. And he brought wrestling to the greatest, I guess, ever been. You know, the guys, before we used to drive the cars from one town to another. Today they're all flying. I worked for him off and on since 1969 till, and I'm going to the show this Monday Night Raw this in Dallas. I will be there too. So I have a good run with this McMahon, and I've been taken champion twice. And the rest of one of the greatest wrestlers I've ever been. One of the greatest wrestlers was, to my opinion, was Bruno Sammartino. Many of you don't remember him, don't know him, but. And I met both the father of the Vachon, and I tell you, those guys were tough. And I was glad it was on my side. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Brian Clark. I'm also glad to be here today. I spent most of my career, only a small part of my career with Vince, about 3 years, and the majority of my career working just the opposite with Turner and TBS. You know, when I was working with Vince, I know we were on the road with a lot of these guys, 280 days out of the year. You know, suitcase to hotel, straight to the airport, do the show, you know, hit the next town, and it's just a constant grind. So, yeah, it brought you together, either ripped you apart, one or the other. You know, a lot of people knock the TBS WCW thing, but me personally, I really enjoyed it. I like working with Turner. I like working with Eric. You know, everybody has their different take on everything. I have nothing but bad to say about Eric Bischoff. And we were 3-time World Tag Team Champions. We went over to Japan. We won the Triple Crown there. So it's a very enjoyable career. Thanks a lot.
I am Typhoon, one of the natural disasters before that tugboat. And if it wasn't for Vince, I wouldn't have the 3 children I have in front of me and see all the things that I've done, a roof over my head, everything else. Vince's only thing is he's a promoter, he's a businessman. In business, you know, he's taken the wrestling business to the next level, and will keep doing so. I'm not blowing smoke up his butt, but he always had an open door policy. If he's seen you, he'd talk to you. If you got a problem, you could always go to him. May not give you the answer that you wanted to hear, but he most definitely would talk to you, and you could take and relieve what was on your chest. But the bottom line is, it is a business, and along in business, you make mistakes. The changes are good sometimes, the changes are bad, and not everybody likes them. But you know what? This business has been a real good business to me. I've got good friends. I've lost a lot of good friends along the way. And being here, seeing all you guys and everything like that, and having a chance to talk to a few of you, you know, it's awesome being here. It's awesome seeing these guys, because I stay real busy at home. And as far as Vince goes, man, he's a good guy, good person, and sometimes he does things you don't agree with. Sometimes he does things that you do agree with. But it's all for business. And you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Thanks.
Got a little surprise for everybody here. You got someone just showed up. Just wanted to say hello real quick. Just right off WWF SmackDown. Kenzo Suzuki. Real quick. They're in town for some appearances this weekend in Ring of Honor. So they're here just to say hello to everybody. Any questions? Any questions for them real quick before?
What's your name? Where are you from?
Aaron from Joanna, Pennsylvania. How are you doing? How have you been for the past couple months? You're recovering real well. You doing okay? 100%.
Sorry, he's not good at English, so I answer for him. He's completely fine, and he training in the Tampa, Florida. So now he choose the ring right now. So maybe he will come back soon in America. Yeah.
Anyone else have a question? Okay. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question?
Mike from Syracuse, and I just have a question for Paul Bearer. He used to be a funeral director, I heard. And
still am.
I was wondering how you would. I was wondering how you were able to play Paul Bearer so well, and if you had anything to add to that.
You have lots of happy customers. Yeah, I have a degree in mortuary science, and I invested a lot of money and a lot of my time in my younger years to that industry. And I maintain my license to this very day. I'm still licensed. I keep up with the continuing education for the field and everything. So if I need to go out and get a cold one tomorrow, I'm still licensed to do so. But one quick story, it was really funny. I think JJ was there when I came up for my interview with Vince for the very first time. First time we had met face to face, and Rick Rude was responsible for that, bless his heart. I walked into the office of the old Titan Towers, and it was JJ and Pat Patterson and Vince at this big conference table. And I was intimidated as hell, first of all, but I came prepared with resume and everything, you know. Vince takes my resume out. Hell, he knew who I was, first of all, and what I've been doing. He flips through it and looks at it and goes, huh. He looked at JJ and Pat, he goes, he is a real mortician. And they all start, ha 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 ha. They all started laughing. I'm going, what the hell? I didn't have a clue. I swear to God, I didn't have a clue. They were looking for a manager for The Undertaker. I didn't know. I didn't know that. I was just glad to be there. You know, I was getting my big break. But, you know, it was just, and so Vince took my, you know, my years in the wrestling business and years in the funeral business and put them together in Paul Bearer. And I've never had to work at it. I'm blessed. I was blessed with this ugly face and this big mouth. Thank you, Jesus. You know, I never had to work. I just had a good time. I got the best seat in the damn house. I got paid for it every night. What can I
say? Questions for anyone else? Okay, got a few. We'll go up front here. What's your name? Where are you from?
Chris from Staten Island. It's back to the pool. What was that at the Great American Bash when they buried you in the cement?
What about it? What do you want to know? How we did it?
Yeah, how you did it, how'd you get out?
Welcome there.
I have never rebuilt this before in public till today. How did we do it?
David Blaine came and pulled you out of the seat. Yeah. You levitated you out.
Okay. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. My part in it was filmed earlier in the day, and it was pre-taped the morning before the show. Undertaker wasn't even there. They cleared the building out completely. There wasn't anybody in the building except the people that had to be there. Security wasn't there, nothing. They put my butt in that glass crypt that you saw, and they backed a real concrete mixer up over my head. Except the mixture wasn't completely concrete like you would pour for the floor. They poured oatmeal in it. It was kind of a 50-50 mixture between oatmeal and the real concrete. But it was, what I remember the most about it was so heavy, is that when I'm sitting there and they would film it, and as the concrete rose, you know, I was sitting in a chair and I had a button that I had to keep pressed. If I ever let go of that button, there was a light backstage off to the side. If that light come on, here they come with sledgehammers and were going to bust me out. But it was a very dangerous thing. And the concrete mister could have screwed up and dumped the whole load on me at one time, you know. So anything could have happened. And they were prepared for, you know, I was scared to death. But, so anyway, long story short, we filmed it up to my neck. Once it got to my neck, that's as furthest that I went into the concrete. During the live show, they brought in a stunt double from California that they made up to look like me, and they put him in there in front of the people, you know. And so on TV, the close-up you saw of me was filmed earlier in the day. So the wide shots was the guy pretending to be me in the gimmick. So that's how it worked. So when it went over the guy's head, that wasn't my head, thank God that it went over. It was the stunt double. And how they got me out, they brought in this big septic tank pump that they pumped septic tanks with and stuff to suck the stuff out. But the stuff was so heavy, the mixture was so heavy, the pump wouldn't pump it out. So they were trying to figure out how am I going to get, and I couldn't move. I was up to my chins in this concrete stuff, and I couldn't lift my feet up or my hands. The stuff was really heavy. So all they could do was open the door to the thing, let the shit pour out, and my fat butt pour right out with it. But that's the secret of the concrete.
Who's next? What's your name? Where are you from? And your question?
Ben from Cleveland. My question's for Doink. I want to know, how are you able to keep the Doink character and the gimmick when Vince is really protective of all his copyrighted characters? Like even the Dudley Boys recently lost their name. I was just wondering how you're able to still be Doink and not run any trouble.
Well, I have always had a good relationship with Vince, and so long as I don't run any serious competition to him, he doesn't have a problem with me. If I do, you know, I'm sure if there was a large promotion that was doing a pay-per-view and we were running Monday night against Monday Night Raw, I'd have a problem. But going along the lines of what I do, he doesn't have a problem with me. I don't have a problem with him. I hope that answers your question.
What's your name, where are you from, and your question?
Hi, it's Ben from Liverpool, England. Question to everybody on the panel. What was your best and worst individual moment in each of your careers?
We'll start with Tugboat on this side.
Is this like TV's funniest bloops and blunders? Where you know that I am the king. All you have to do is look at the internet. The Shockmaster is not the most embarrassing moment. I laugh about it now, but you know, things happen. If you guys really want to know the story of the Shockmaster and not what's on the internet, the bottom line is I had a helmet on my head with a pair of pantyhose covering the eye holes so that I couldn't, that were actually cut off the secretary that was Janie Ingalls in the office because the flakes of metal flake were coming through the eye holes into my eyes. That started my evening off. And then the actual set itself was built as an actual set with 2x4s and sheetrock walls. And Mike Graham was sitting next to me to give me the cue to go onto the set. And I took and used the double axe handle of my fist to take and bust through the wall. But unfortunately, the bottom of the wall didn't bust out. So I went, my weight carried me through the wall, onto the floor, and then you know the rest of the story. It's history. And the most exciting day of my life was coming to the WWF. It's been my dream, and being able to work with the guys that I watched in the business and grew up with working in the business that taught me. You know, every day was a learning experience, and I thank God that being able to see everything and do everything that I've ever done. You never learned either. And I never learned, you know.
I'd say for me personally, being 3 times World Tag Team Champions with my partner Brian Adams, definitely the highlights of my career. Also winning the Triple Crown in Japan, and one of the guys that I really respected and took sort of my style after was Stan Hansen. Just the all-out brawler, and just go in there and beat the hell out of you kind of style I really liked. And of course, the negative parts would definitely have to be the injuries. The 3 concussions I received, the shoulder surgery, left knee reconstruction, you know, those kind of things. That's the downfall of it. But you know, take the good with the bad. Thanks.
Well, I tell you one funny story happened to me. When I first come I came in Canada in 1968, and I started wrestling in Europe. And in Europe was a little bit different than here in the United States, because in Europe, that time to be professional wrestler, you have to have amateur title. You have to be amateur champion. So I was a champion of my state, and so I started wrestling. So when I come to Canada, they told me, Nicola, you go wrestle Bear. And I thought Bear was a guy name. And I said, okay, no problem. I don't care. That's anybody. You know? I'm ready. You know? I'm young. I was strong, and I'm done. And when I came to the ring, it was a big, terrible tale. Gene Dubois Bear, they killed her. Later on, the Bear killed his wife and his wife's girlfriend. Yes. And the Bear wrestling him in the winter time. He's supposed to sleep. It was very dangerous. Man, I wrestled the Bear. It's like we said, be nice and don't hurt him, you know, because if you hurt him, he hit you back. So we go over there, he gave me flying mare. I said, oh God, I couldn't believe it. He was so strong, you know. So I said, I was really scared of Bear. So I come behind, tried to pick him up, and I pick him up. That damn Bear got mad. Oh God. And the guy who had the Bear, he was going his head like this, you know. So anyway, I was lucky. Bear didn't hurt me. I guess he liked me. That was the funniest thing ever happened in my life. In a wrestling. I'll give my
I guess the best time for me, except for the first time I ever stood in Madison Square Garden with Nikolai, was working with Hulk Hogan on a Saturday night main event in New Haven, Connecticut. I'm out there with Nikolai and out there with Slick. And I don't care what anybody says, there was nothing like being in the ring with Hulk Hogan, because the building actually started shaking when these people started coming for him. I mean, it was just, I got scared. That was the first time I think I was ever so scared. I said, man, this guy is over. And it just, I'll never forget that day. And the funniest day, Ric Flair, Pensacola, Florida, 1984, 23 kamikazes later, he leaves me butt-ass naked on the bed with the curtains open, and he's on his way to Atlanta TV, and I'm waiting for Arn Anderson to come pick me up to take me to Dothan TV, and that's where Arn Anderson and Tommy Gilbert found me. And Rick comes back, we have Dothan that night, and hey boys, here comes Flair. Hey boys, I just come back, and he goes, and I told everybody. That was the worst day.
Wow, that was a good one. I don't remember those. JJ, you don't remember those, do you? The most exciting was coming out at WrestleMania with Shawn Michaels. I can remember the bottom of my feet were sweating. It was at Caesar's Palace, and I think JJ, didn't they have you wrapped up in some kind of toga? Like y'all were all in togas, and that was pretty embarrassing, wasn't it? But for me, I was just like, my hands were sweating, my bald head was sweating. It was so exciting. And we see the most embarrassing moment. Boy, there's been so many. Getting caught having matches in the locker room, probably. I don't know. But I think the best moment that I've experienced in my family in pro wrestling was not my uncle getting his leg pulled off, but when Vince set up for Donald Trump to get spit on by the vampire. I don't know if any of y'all know that, but I'm married to Gangrel, and they set him up real good where he would spit all over the Donald one night in Madison Square Gardens, and the Donald didn't like it very much, but Vince liked it a lot.
I think the worst night for me was in Tacoma, Washington, when we were doing a spot with the British Bulldogs, and Tilda was chasing me around the ring, and I tried to climb the ropes and lost my footing in the room with JJ and fell over and broke my wrist, and that wasn't funny at all. And the people kept hitting me on my arm, thinking it was a work. And then my greatest night, I think probably was, I think the time when we were trying to sing the Russian national anthem.
Well, highs and lows, there's a lot of memorable things that happened here, but I'd have to say the highest point to me, it sounds simple, but was just wrestling in Madison Square Garden. I mean, every baseball player wants to play in Yankee Stadium, and anybody who wrestled or boxed wants to go in the greatest building in the world. I mean, there's bigger buildings and newer ones and fancier ones, but there's only one Madison Square Garden, and there's been a few guys before you that weren't too bad that walked down that hallway. There's Ali's and Frazier's, and there was Hulk Hogan's and San Martino's. There was some guys there that could get the job done. And the lowest part of my life in this business was, and is, unfortunately, the untimely death of so many of my friends. That's what really breaks my heart.
I had two highs. One was just getting into the business, because I was born and raised right down the road from here in Trenton, New Jersey. And I went to my first matches as a kid when I was 14 years old, and just was overwhelmed. And I never stopped being a fan. So just the fact that I was able to finally get into the business was a high. And as Doink said, I never wrestled in this area full time. I wrestled all over the world, and I had never appeared in Madison Square Garden. Very late in my career, when I was more of a manager than a wrestler, Eddie Graham called Vince McMahon Sr. less than 2 months before he passed away from lung cancer, and got me booked in Madison Square Garden, and I wrestled Tito Santana for the Intercontinental title. My only time that I ever wrestled Madison Square Garden. So, like Doink said, Madison Square Garden is still the greatest arena anywhere in the world, and so that was a high. The low is two things again. The day that WCW closed down, I think, was a sad day. Sad for everybody that worked there, but sad for the business too, because everything is better when there's competition. I think Vince's product is better when he has when there's a measuring stick, and when he has something, even whether he regards it as serious competition or not. The fact that there's two players in the game make both of you better. And I worked a couple shots for Jerry Jarrett with TNA at a time when Vince Russo was there, and it's not personal with Vince Russo, but he's the only person in almost 40 years in the business that when I got out there's always been a trust, whether you're a wrestler, a manager, whatever you do, that in the ring you give your body to the other person, he takes care of you, you take care of him. And there's a vulnerability with no matter what you do, that if you pour your heart and soul into it, you will always be vulnerable. And you have to have some trust that the person that you're interacting with has that same feeling, because you leave yourself bare to that other person. And Vince Russo was the only person in my whole career where I felt at that time, and maybe he's changed, I don't know, that didn't have that same respect, and that I left myself open and exposed to him, and that he didn't have that same respect and took advantage of it. That was the other low point.
Well, being the last one here on the panel and hearing all these other stories, you know, I was thinking while everybody was talking how much alike we all are in so many ways, by the unique bond that we have with this great profession that we share. And it's funny that, it's kind of ironic that my highs and lows parallel a lot of the highs and lows that have already been spoken here. Being a country boy from Mobile, Alabama, I dreamed forever to get in the wrestling business. And wrestling. And two of my biggest dreams were, you know, down there, it was back in the territory days, there wasn't no cable TV or anything. The only thing I saw that went on in other parts of the country was the magazines. And I'd read the magazines about the gardens and San Francisco Cow Palace, and I said, oh, just to work in these places one day. And I said, I can't wait. One day I'm going to work in Madison Square Gardens. And fortunately, my first match with The Undertaker in Madison Square Gardens as Paul Bearer was against Tugboat. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. That was one of the biggest highs of my career. And the other high was I always dreamed of working in my hometown. And it was Madison Square Gardens and my hometown arena in Mobile. And my first time in the big municipal auditorium in Mobile with the WWF, and my mom and dad was on the front row. My dad goes, proud of you, son. I'll never forget it. And I know y'all can understand that completely. And just like Ray said, the lows came and are still coming way, way too many. Every time we lost a Von Erich, every time we lost a Kurt Hennig or Rick Rude or a Hawk, and I can sit here and go on and on and on. It tears a piece of our hearts out. These are our brothers. These are the brothers that we work with and travel the road with. We know their families. We know their kids. We know what they like to drink and like to eat. You know, and it's sad. But we move on, and it's good to be here, and I appreciate it.
More questions? Go right here in the front. This is for John from Edison. It's for everybody. Of all the young guys coming up now, who do you see taking the sport to the next level?
It's not fair. I like Timmy, the referee. Stand up, Timmy. This is the best referee next to Earl Hebner. By the way, Luna, he's going to have our match tonight. We need to talk. Wear some tight underwear, Sean. John Cena, he's up there, and there's a lot of them, but John can carry the ball, and he's doing a good job right now.
I have to admit that I stopped watching it. I flick around. If I see Flair in there, I watch it just because of the fond memories that I have. I want to see what he's still doing. But if you have a choice, if you don't like what you see, then this is what you do, and that's what I've done. But I had a chance to meet the Dudleys and be around them for a show and to meet them personally, and not knowing what the current crop was like. I had heard that many of them now think that they're rock stars and have no longer got any respect for the business, and I can only judge it on the basis of the Dudleys. That at a dinner for Bruno Sammartino, they were very gracious and very respectful of their heritage and the people that they said paved the way for them. So as long as there's guys like that, and they're the only two that I could basically assess that those guys are great talent.
Out of all the newer guys you're talking about, I don't know any of them personally. I don't know what they do. I don't know how they act. I don't know what kind of guys they are. If you're talking about just talent, as I'm flipping through the channels, I think what's his name? Bob Orton's kid has it. I don't know his name. I never met him. I wouldn't know him, but just by watching him, I think that gene pool of the Ortons has got it, huh?
I'm so far removed from wrestling. I don't even know who they are. I don't even watch it more. I wouldn't know.
My TV set's covered with spit. I miss seeing lady wrestlers. Actually, but they're really getting good. It's just I don't really have much psychology, but it just seems like to me like girls are breaking their necks and they're doing a lot of high risk maneuvers that are gonna put them in wheelchairs in 5 years. And when you look at somebody like Mae West or the fabulous Moolah, who's been wrestling
100 years.
Well, never 173 years. It's real sad that women have had to go to those lengths. It's really cool to see them do those moves, but if they could do them in proper places, I think that it would be better for women's wrestling, and if they could still tell a story, put that high-flying move in there, and not keep doing that high-flying move that's going to put them in a wheelchair. Knock wood, I hope it doesn't. And I'll go home and clean my TV set off now that I've told you all that it's covered with spit.
I really enjoy watching, when I get a chance to, when I flip through it, Kurt Angle, and I still like the old school. I like Chris Benoit. I mean, that's the era that I came from, and the one I still like, I'm like JJ, because when I first got to go see wrestling, I remember seeing Ric Flair wrestle the first time in Roanoke, Virginia in Starland Arena, and he weighed 310 pounds, and he could move then. And he put a mark on wrestling that I don't think anybody ever take away. And I'm hoping one day we can have a legend show in Roanoke to remember those days. I just wish I could bring Ric Flair there, because he really made his mark in this business, and I enjoy getting to watch. I'm glad he's still out there, and I hope he can keep going.
All right, to be honest with you, I don't like to watch any sports on TV. If I'm in it, I like it. If I'm not in it, always been like that all my life. Even back home, when my brother played first professional soccer game, won the oldest team in Europe, Hajduk. My father said, "You have to go." So I go there and I fall asleep. and same thing with, I know worse than that, but yeah, you have some new talent. You have better medicine today, better equipment to work out. But when I started, I was all natural. Never took any drugs, never took any steroids. Now I'm 55 years old next month, and I still wrestle. And I lost 70 pounds. I guess Boris found it. And when I first came to the United States was to wrestle in 1969, and just for television. Then in 1970, I came first time wrestling in the Madison Square Garden. that was the first time Mrs. Square Garden was sold out. So I could say I was one of the first guys to sell out Mrs. Square Garden. And they only have 6 matches in the card. Wow. Today they have 20 matches in the card, and they still can't sell it out. And I think that's the best. But business go up and down. Business go up and down. They make more money because they have television, they have internet, they have everything, more technology, they have better promotion. So I feel good to see good young guys because they look good. I met Baptiste. I think he's a very good guy, good champion. Triple H, I know he was coming up in the business. I used to know China. I know Vachon here. I know whole her family. Their father was very good, very strong wrestler. Uncle too. Whole family, right? And one time was a family from Quebec named Vachon. They have like 14 kids with all wrestlers. Yeah. Vachon, Paul, Rougeau. Oh, Rougeau. Yeah, that's the name. That's a Rougeau father, and uncle, and they. So I've been around for a long time, and I hope I stay around for a long time. Thank you.
Back to I guess the question is the new people that are coming up. I agree with a couple other people that said Kurt Angle. I think Kurt's awesome as far as just watching his work and amateur style combined with the pro wrestling style thing. And of course, Chris Benoit, his work ethic is awesome. He's I've worked with Chris before and enjoyed it. There's a lot of guys that are Eddie Guerrero, another guy. There's a lot of guys that are able to pick up and take it to the next level. It's just a matter if the people up top are going to let them move up. If they're not held down, if it's not a political move, if they don't hit the ceiling, they'll be okay. But there's a lot of guys that definitely have the talent.
People ask, you guys are asking me about up and coming. I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they, other than them keeping me abreast of who's what or what's what, I'm so busy I don't really get a chance to watch as much as I want to. There's a lot of great talent out there. I prefer, like Boris says, a lot of the older guys. Where the matches told stories and they had some idea. I see a lot of different things that have changed and stuff in the business. But there's a lot of good guys, the Guerreros. I enjoy watching them. But the biggest thing that I've seen about the business that I don't agree with is the family value of the business that's gone down. I think in a lot of ways that's hurt the business. You can have an adult, if you push everything to one side and go one way, you got to diversify and spread it out. I remember when Vince had the cartoons on Saturday mornings, and there was a kids show, more oriented show on a Saturday morning, along with the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? And there was later programming. So that's the only thing about the business that bothers me.
I have a quick question for Paul. When Vince bought you in, how did you react to seeing The Undertaker, almost a 7-foot guy, and when Vince put the idea to you, just walk us through that a little bit, what your thoughts were at that time?
As a matter of fact, JJ was the one that called me. I was still living in Dallas. Like I said, I had that first meeting with him. I walked away that day with the contract. They said, go home and we'll call you and let you know what we have in mind for you. Little did I know. But a few weeks later, JJ called, and I'll never forget. Vince wants you to put your hair black. He wants you to wear black suits. Your name's going to be Paul Bearer. I had the blonde hair for all those years and the Percy Pringle gimmick and all that. But I needed that break so much, and I was so glad to get the break. But it didn't take long to get used to it. I think after I got my first paycheck, things were cool.
Dollar signs.
Go about 5 more minutes, so let's get some quick questions here. We'll go from name, where you're from, and your question.
My name is Vincent from Staten Island, New York. My question is for Mr. Dillon. Are you still in contact with the Four Horsemen?
Oh yeah. I just saw Tully a couple weeks ago down in Davie, Florida. He actually is in great shape and wrestled a match, and I went out and managed him, which was great against Ron Bass. So that was like a snapshot back in time. I see Ole Anderson from time to time at some reunions. I talk to Ric Flair on the phone. Less contact with Arn. He's still on the road a lot, but you know, we all. It's like everybody here has said. You know, once you're in this business, there is a bond that's never broken. We know we're closer to some people than others, but the Horseman, you know, people still talk about it 20 years later. It was one of those magical moments that just stood the test of time.
Take 2 more questions. Go back in the back here. What's your name, where you're from, and your question?
My name's JD. I'm from Wilmington, Delaware. I'm actually a worker, and I've worked with a few of you guys up there. And I can say probably over the years, a lot of these people here either loved yous or loved to hate yous, as I did too. And I think a lot of people talk about Hulk Hogan being one of the biggest things ever happened to wrestling. There's one bigger thing in my mind I think happened to wrestling, and it has to do with Mr. Paul Bearer. I'd like to know who came up with the idea and how did it come about for The Undertaker?
I assume that was Vince, you know, because at that time that's what it was, and still it's always Vince. I mean, it's all got to go through him.
Yeah, you have a nightmare.
And I assumed, you know, that the original idea was Vince's, and I get asked this a lot. You know, did you ever have a clue it was going to turn into what it's turned into? Here we are 15 years later, and there's still an Undertaker. When I started with him in January of '91, I didn't have a clue that here we are 15 years later. It's like JJ with the Four Horsemen, and I think 20, 30 years down the road, it's like we talk about San Martino, they're still going to talk about The Undertaker. And I've been privileged to be a part of that, and to walk in the shadows of Mark Calloway. He's a fantastic human being. Notwithstanding his powers and his talent in the ring, he's a fantastic human being all the way around, and I know everybody up here will second that. This has been a pleasure.
Folks, while we have a minute here, this gentleman here, this is Mr. Terrence Brennan, and he is the one who's responsible for putting this whole thing together. It takes a lot of teamwork, but I don't want this guy to talk to you for just a minute. I'm sure he's got a lot of heartfelt things to say to everybody.
Once again, I just want to apologize for the situation with Sid. Try to do our best today and make good for what happened. We have one more autograph block coming up in about a half hour. And I just want everyone to have fun today, and thank you for coming out.
Okay, Gino Caruso has a question. And this will be the...
Oh! What? No,
Did I get the name wrong?
Oh, you better.
Oh my God! I'm sorry.
I got big tits?
Do I look like I got bitch tits?
I do.
Oh, okay. I'm Gene Moore, and I part owner of National Wrestling Superstars. Now, I got a 2-part question for Nikolai Volkov. The first part of the question is, who is the toughest match you've ever had, and who is the toughest shooter? And to end this, everybody here knows the voice, or have heard the voice of Nikolai. Would like to ask him to put a few bars after this is done, please. Nikolai.
All right. The toughest wrestler I ever wrestled was Bruno Sammartino. It was in Madison Square Garden in 1974. I wrestled him 1 hour to a draw. Now, that was the first time and last time I ever wrestled more than 1 hour. Now, the toughest shooter in the business, I have to say, was Pat Patterson. He's going behind you far.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go back for old time's sake. If you would join the Bolsheviks, and please rise for the singing of the Russian national anthem.
How do you top that? What are we doing? That's the end of the
Союзная живых Republik свободных родила навеки векая Русь. Здравствует сводных и воли народов, единый могучий Советский Союз. Слава отечеству, nasze narodne, zbasta pobiedy, pobiedę widział.
Huge chaperone, Nikolai Volkov. Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for all of our panel guests. Thanks so much for coming out.